Coming in as screen adapters is trying to understand the communication setting of process. All position location setting. Thursday, we have the 888 line settings in information locations in one cycle. That puts lines of communications into line centers into 4/8 in triangulation. That processes position location to a system. Sets lines of communication settings of yin and yang. That's 144 platforms of face recognition. Lionsgate. Okay. Lionsgate is a line communications that puts lines, all line centers, how to stand tall and how to communicate to position of process, understand how to understand the process communication settings and travels to get in that configuration locations of freedom of speech. Okay, that's what a line is. It's the king of the forest, right? It's knowing exactly how to say things that what's on your mind, right? This is about understanding our freedom and our sovereignty in our settings and set location system, how we come into revealing, okay, and position lines of track calculations and evolving our systems, right? Arriving in our system is departure on its own system to its calculation screen. So we have to really understand how to use that through adaptation. And the only way to understand that is through the mind. And when you understand the mind gets understanding how to access these things that you already have and platted to. This puts you in all levels of grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres. There's 3 triangulation lines of settings right there, guys, of platforms. How to use the grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres of you through your highways. That's a 4-track division. Setting core lines, eye center appearance. You're all lines of 7, right? But you're not in bodies of water. Your liquid formation lines has changed now. It's in a 144 platform in line connection setting. Its conscious awareness of everything around you is optimal. That puts lines of timelines of correlation setting into time capacitor. The travel business lines of calculation screen line puts everything in adaptation lines of surface. It's really understand how to use your highways and track location, right? You are the center operation of you. So you're not just part of the machine. You are the machine operation of yourself. You're not part of the intelligence. You are the intelligence. To formulate your system is truly understanding you through self mode. Now, this puts lines of light communication setting at digital code screens. How to use that through your DNA track location to a system. So the more you identify your system, the more life gets easier in tractions, especially when you go through line calculation lines of alpha, delta, theta. What is that position? What does that mean? Why do I have to understand these things? Well, it's all levels of mechanism of travel. Okay. Getting into that position locations, you're all levels of mapping sequence of primers, inset location new settings, right? So we have a very powerful test coming up on line conditions of next Monday. That's already here in tractions. It's about understanding how to get into location grids. It's all about understanding how to get into cross-referencing your lights, travel locations on grid, off grid, off lights, on lights, high chord track interference into cross-referencing, string theory, 2 panels, line conditions into location grid, which is a graphical screen line condition geographical map for the higher self, the avatar, and the sim to go through, right? These are different frequencies. Now, when you put that together, you can do whatever you want. You can modify these things as it travels. But you've got to understand you have to come back to your original design of you, which is your own programmers of programming through the simulator. Of the simulation, you are all in of yourself. Self-modification is everything through self-identifications. Everything the model is you through teleportation, is knowing how to use that anytime you want in set position, right? So the body helps you to understand the navigations, right? The mind shows you the line communication, navigation of travel. Okay. The connection of the brain shows you the waves of travel. Okay. There's a central setting and location of your systems. If we get a core track provision line of cycles, that's human resonance, you already know the line communication setting, position, and process. Okay. Get in that position locations. Remember, I have to connect, right? This is how I connect with a digital pad. Okay. Once it finds the waving cycles, it hides a direct line cycle and position, it comes on, right? It doesn't come on until it position lines of tracking and identifies your system all through awareness of consciousness and where it came from. The central system of everything line connects to its box frame and its triangulation frame knows exactly where you are every second, every minute, every hour. It communicates your voice line correlation setting, to track location setting, to your calculations, to your clocking systems. Sets lines of communication setting, position location to its program. All right. So get into that correlations, get you in position lines of tractions. Okay. So it's like a fingertip, tap, 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 tap. So that's a digital imprint. So what that does is it opens sequence, open sequence, open sequence, It opens sequence. That's what it does when you touch the pad, right? And it reverberates around the plasma line screen of direct signal location to its settings. And it position its platforms, comes in the line communication setting, is marked by tesseract and tetrahedron of the I correlation setting travels. Sets communication lines, you bring it in through equation, drop it in line conditions, back in traction, right? All through set calculations. See how it directs the signals, modification, and interference, change the way the line cycle coordination travels, puts lines of alpha, delta, and theta, and operation lines of set location. See how it changed the formation? Just by changing the wave cycles. Every time I do this, my hands are moving, right? But everything else is moving all at once. So it's all time sequence of platforms in line condition setting of 4 settings. Process correlation lines of sun and the moon. All lines in position travel in communication position to its capsule and set design. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? All right. So I'm just showing you how powerful this digital pad is. Okay, and how to understand it has its own system correlation. Okay, so directing lines of position lines. So we're going to get into all levels. First, we're going to get into the calculation location grids, geographical map. Then we go in position with the placebo, and then we go location setting and string theory. 3 triangulation lines of split lines of anomaly. Correlation line, location settings of flux and travel. Then we get location lines of calculation location grid. 3 core settings and travels in position, electrical light communication, right? Direct lines, electrical line communication, position of process. Direct calculation lines, line connection high setting, flux capacitor, and triangulation. Okay? Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? So everybody has a flux in their set correlations, especially with the team line, because their team line is now in line settings at 15,044. 15,000 line settings is 0 and positional 4 track locations. 2 binary relines, 2 binaries equals lines of 1 relay. 1 relay, 1 program. Okay? Process correlation lines of 0 gravity in setting. Okay? Process communication ground centers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 puts lines equals lines of bio and track location. Okay? Sets communication lines of 4 lines equals lines equal lines equal lines equal lines location setting to travel, right? So 1 set lines of perimeter, 5 set location lines of travel, right? I'm doing everything I want, and how it lines its communication to everything that I do, information location, it changes the metric meters of scales of balance in my system of tractions of computer operation. It's all lines of communication, how you do that through patterns of behavior, okay? Now, if you understand the matrix, if you understand how to play a game, you understand everything is a pattern. Everything has to be a pattern. So getting position of signal lines, course center line position location of bio settings, all through track locations 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 location of perimeters. Direct calculus line screens, add lines of Fibonacci, correlation and triangulation, line condition setting, high position of percentage, inline communication star setting locations, calculation modificate lines of box line rotation and circle location setting and travel. Okay, hieroglyphics. Okay. Glidosphere is a line correlation setting into line position location to a system through grounds. It levels lines of operation lines of cycles. It's a wide line generation screen. The opposite particle line screen high adaptation lines of surface that track its position locations and setting. So at 15,000 line screen of 44 track provisions of cycles and generation. Right? Then you got the ring graph. Let's add another ring graph to screens. Let's add zeros and ones. And zeros and ones of tractions and direct signals modification. Okay? Setting a forward line split, lines anomaly, calculation of 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. Cross line conditions of 5, 6, 7, 8 location. Right? And then we cross over, right? All through T reception line setting. Powerful stuff, isn't it? So it looks like a cloud ring graph screen. That's all it is. This is a cloud ring graph screen. Process communication lines of high center interference is a platform communications. Bringing all lines of communication on platform settings of 24, 48, 72, 144 sets a platform of a crystal grid. Set lines of 144 in position location line setting across location system in lines of invisibility and chart location. Right? Process calculation line grounds, operate the signals, cross line condition setting into 15,000 lines of 44 traction lines and calculation. All right? So we go into black line cycles, black circles, black rotation surface into loss of angle point location of 3 settings of travel. Sets communication lines of high correlation lines of 4 settings. Process communication lines of grounds, platforms of 1, in position of 2, and track location. Okay? So it's an image with an image with an image with a primary with an image. Okay, so it's over line conditions and matrix line screen locations of a ring graph screen that puts particle system in correlation setting of track rules and how to understand how to use it in your traffic inventories that's set designed through your binaries. You have to understand how to use your argument as a correlation setting. So this is basically how you reiterate line communication setting position programs and location system and how to become your own quantum line conditions of your awareness of consciousness of set calculations of self mode. Sets lines of communication setting in all process and positional platforms in line communication with settings in all track location. Okay? That's my equation. All right. So when you get into that, let's get in position locations of the higher self, right? So you got two panels. Okay, so you got the waving cycles, line condition setting, cross-referencing lights. Okay? This is a location grid. Okay? Very simple, right? Higher self comes in, it's that position, okay, travels through, right? But it's a location grid, see? Travels through, right? Sets position, location of travel, okay? It's a grid that travels through, right? All right, cross-referencing signals has line communication. As it's going through, it has signal lines and sensory perception, right? Audio lines come in and out in audio, right? Beacon lights in position of planets. Platitude line communication of planets of surface tractions, right? Direct lines of beacon lights of 1, 2 in line position. Cross location of Jupiter and line settings of 3-track location. All right. So it's really interesting here. Pluto lines and travels. So they can shift lines and anomalies. Planet can be over here, planet can be over here, planet can be over here in triangulation. It repositions its lines calculation lines to its value, but it's never in the same location to its setting. Process calculation lines of coordinates, line can setting that travels in center communication setting and process communication to a system, but tunnels of defense line. Process calculation lines are higher levels of location grid and secure line defense lines of communication. Okay? So getting into that, you get into coordinates of a planet. Now, how do you understand that in line communication setting? Well, you're standing here. Okay? You're here in line communication setting. Here's the clouds. Okay, opposite location. This is simulation, right? Simulator. Okay, these are the clouds, right? Start with cloud locations, right? 3-track version, scan, 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 right? Now, in position, they come out in track location right away because they want to know what's going on with you, right? So they scan your position, scan your position, scan your position location. That's what happens right away, right? So once you get into that position, then you understand how it's all set up, line conditions, your sky grid, sky nets, sky panels, sky center, interference, cross location, settings of travels, point lines, calculation, setting, docking system of travel. Okay, so that's one graph screen. Okay, so you got the 1,000 cross line signals. Okay, then you got the location grids, the cross locations, right? So cross line conditions setting, road graph communication, right? Direct line signals. Sets position of the sun and the moon that lines its communication setting to waiting on signal. Okay, communication settings all lines high center interference and center operation of platforms of your Earth location setting of travel. Sets communication line ground lines and film strips of design lines in a 45 angle split in a 4-line communication of 5, 6, 7 set locations of setting. So trying to get you guys to understand how to go through location grids, understanding line connections of cross-referencing signals. Getting into the planet's surface is coordinates on its own system and track locations. All right. All right. So mechanism over power. Let's say I want to connect with all levels of Jupiter. Right. There's Jupiter. Right. Signal line connections to 3 lines of waving line rotation lines of sonar. Echo chambers line conditions all levels of Charlie. Line conditions echo line. Traffic flow inventory line screen adaptation lines of surface and line position locations of calculation. All right. Very powerful stuff. Right. Center core system split lines and 3-track position of 4 settings, 6 lines of 8-track locations. Process communication lines of pi and generation screens. Sets communication high center interference in position of platforms 1 in platforms A and platforms C in traction. Track calculation lines of high center interference in tubing and line rotation surface and track locations. Operation cycles in platforms A, B, and C in traction. Sets communication lines of A into B in position of C in track location. Process calculation line screens, platitudes as line screen location in its position location of travels in direction of time sequence and position of pattern. That's my equation, right? So there's so many different ways you have to go through all calculation lines of coordinates. Now, understanding what planets do, They are like a tractor beam, and it's mechanism locations of power that send lines of communication to its beacon light. Beacon light can come from any line communication in the constellation. It correlates to interference in your habitation zones and habitation zones. It's tracked its position location when it comes into your inhibitors. The inhibitors at the back of the neck are the line connection setting that are the microchips and line connection setting and process correlations to locations back of the neck, cross locations of ear and track location, right? Sets communication lines of graphs, cross line signals location, right? Setting communication lines of XT1000 comes in, line sonars in one line cycle into right and left location. Sonar comes in to track location of the graphs and 3-line communication. Cross line indicate line centers into 24-line signature numbers. Graph calculation, holograph line screens, high definition lines of surface interactions. Direct lines of high center interference into all lines, tether communication settings on 144 platforms in track location of system and calculation. Communication line, ground lines to high center interference, lines of 3 tethers, into line communication of cerebral and line position of travels and a 4 correlation setting of travel. Process communication lines of high center interference comes into the shoulders, line communication setting. The process and lines of circulation line rotation of surface that puts all communication setting into its disk in track location. Okay, center communication lines, high center interference, in position comes in line signals into operational line that opens all signals and modification lines of intelligence configuration. Okay, that's what's in back of you. So understanding the inhibitors and how it processes communication setting, the open sequence. Position lines of calculation, screen lines, adaptation lines, of course, right? Line communication settings. You got frontal lobes and you got back lobes. Back lobe correlation, travel correlation lines, impulse lines, direct signal location settings. Calculate, modify in line condition setting to all levels. Inhibitors, line screen, adaptation lines of surface. Process correlation light signals, cross line signals, line condition setting. Process communication line set location of the sun in the process that's in the back in program line setting to travel. Process communication of the moon is in front lines of its frontal lobe in track location setting of projection. The projection line screen crosses line signals on the 4-line split line of anomaly track location. Now make revision. So how you start seeing things, if you look really close, you can see the intelligence. See the eye lines, correlation lines, looking this way in traction. Right. 4-line split line of anomaly, line position location to its system. Okay, so we get a box line rotation, split lines of 4 traction, right? Cross locations into data formation, right? Cross line settings in 3 panels of communication, right? Correlation security line, defense line, right? Cross location over cross line conditions, over cross line position location and program. Position lines, energetic line, window frame, correlations frame, track frame, simulation frame, cortex frame. Sets communication lines as settings into 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 position docking, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and center operation lines as surface interactions. Direct lines of signals, cross line signals, 1 center, 1 operation surface. Process communication line grounds, line calculation setting and window frame. Process communication lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and set location. Process communication ground centers in triangulation line condition side position of its program. Direct calculates line screen locations, adding line signals into panels of split lines of anomaly at 3 location centers. Process communication lines of 2 track location provision. Center communication lines of center line, operation surface, operation directions, operation line condition setting, and process of platforms in communication setting of operation. Now, directing lines of platform, it gets much easier once you understand platitude. Equation line cross locations are 144 over 144 of pi. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's position lines of 5 centers into the sun and the moon that waits on signals in set course system and traffic calculation. Sets communication lines of ground lines of 0 lines, cross location settings, process lines and vortex location setting to travel. Communicates ground centers in line position location of system in all lines and calculation of screen lines adaptation. Calculate modify in center line condition setting opens all sequence in platforms energetic dome screen correlation setting attraction. That equation. All right. So I'm showing you all different ways how you are created through line settings where the avatar comes in position travels and creates lines of calculation setting. Okay. So cross locations of 2 lines of 3 tractions, right? This is the location grid, okay? These are the 2 panels, all right? So that's the grid you're going through. All right, so in that position, once you go in the center operation, like there, right? you're halfway there to the center of its point direction. Okay, so once you get into there, the planet comes in, sets off the beacon lights and 2-track provision lines of cycles, sets communication lines. As the higher self is going through, it's traveling through its system, so it goes to the acceleration mode. Setting lines of communication high set calculation screen lines. If you want to go faster, you get a position location higher lines of travel. 4 lines of communication setting to operation line surface. Sets position lines of travel. Setting communication lines of the sun and moon opens all signals and track location. Direct lines modification lines, center lines of communication line setting. Sets communication tubing and line direct location of system. Process calculation on ground centers. Opens all signals, opens all platforms, and line connection setting and process calculation. Sets communication line ground centers, line to its operation line conditions like crop circles, and set design and platform. Sets communication setting line conditions high center interference, opens all signals, opens all grounds into a black hole that sets the coordinates of communication to its planets in line position to its operation surface that puts all triangulation line position on its program and time sequence of the now calculation. Done by equation. All right. So everything is created in line setting and all levels of operation location of the planetary surface, the location grid. All right. Now, you get into all connection high centers and placements. Placebo. All right. Placebo. Now, what it means to me is what it means to you differently. Okay. So there's the different lines of communication. Facts is everything of Earth. Yes, 1 times 1 equals 1. But in space, it equals anything and everything in between. And when it goes in the between, it separates the correlation lines that bring us back to track location of its muscle memory that brings in location setting. So you're always in an equal line correlation setting, but you got to always see it in a box frame. Okay. Never see it through an equal frame. Okay. See, the reason why I say equal, because it's already in box, because it's already traveling in 3 lines of communication, right? Box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4. All right. So that's platforms of correlation lines and high center interference. Coming to placement lines and communication setting and compute line screen, calculation high center and placebo. Okay, add lines of awareness in position to its communication and its existence in position location to its settings, all levels of its balance into its operation. Placebo. Okay. Okay. So how you track vision is all about understanding how you use your binaries and your transistors and your resistors, right? So getting the coordinates of a planet is all lines of connection of sonar, right? So let's go with the core tractions. Here's the ear line setting, right? Ear line conditions. Crosses this way, crosses this way. So it's a continuous force going like this in travel. Okay, that's what it's doing. In and out, in and out, in and out, right? And it has affinity 8 loop, right? That's what it's doing in process and communication, right? That's all it's doing, right? Center core system and travel correlation line connection setting and process communication, right? Process line connection setting in position of its probing and track location. Direct lines of communication lines of configuration face lines of communication setting of set calculations, right? So it's looking above and it's looking below, okay? So I'm just showing you how it looks on the lines of sonar communication, okay? And how it can look in direct lines of communication of center operation lines of surface. Brainwaving pattern sets lines of communication setting, opens all signal location to the cortex lines of SIM. Simulation all levels of simulating line condition setting to attachment screen lines of brain patterns and line track location to setting. So you see line communication to its neck. Clustrum comes in line track location to its system. Hooah! Okay? All right. Dumb equation. All right, so getting into position, you have to understand what a location grid does. That's what it follows up in position to its location. So let's start with the code living line screen. Once you're in that location grid, you are traveling. Let's go through this signal. Let's just go through that line connection setting, right? You're going through it, right? So the avatar is setting up the location grid. Now it's coming through interaction. It's coming through, right? Now it's got a planet here. Now this is an inhabitation zone. This is inside, and this is outside location, right? So in position, as the higher self is coming in attractions, remember, this is only in the angelics. It doesn't go above anywhere else. It stays in the angelics, right? Travels here, scans this planet, then it scans this planet inside location, right? So set sonar back to you and travel in location setting, echo chambers, process communication lines of planet, sets coordinates and communication settings apply. Track lines that communicate setting coordinates. Line communicates lines of Jupiter. Set lines correlates in northeast lines of south. 6 lines of 1, line position of 0, line condition setting, and 2 levels detection. Screen lines, adaptation lines of surface, coordinates, lines of pi. Okay, all position location to get to this planet. There's the coordinates, right? Coordinates come in its image lines and correlates in track appearance. Team line is in the center core system now in a 15,000 line of 44 tractions. That puts line division locations of schematics and set coordinates in center your primers. So when you get ringing ears, you now get schematics now. The higher you go, the more you see. The visionary cortex line is coming into more lines of liquid formation. Screen line that aptitudes of your system location to amplifies. It amplifies the settings of core track location to its system. Now let's go through track provision lines of cycles. Get a planetary line surface and tractions. Right, there's a planet. Set line communication of Mercury in 3 line cycles of line communication setting. Process communication lines of 1, 2, and 3 track location. Right, getting lines at coordinates and setting. So we have line communication of 25 line cycles, coordinate set interference, and 30 track location system. Split lines of anomaly. Arrow indicates 1, position of 2, and position of 3, and correlation lines of traction. Track calculates lines, high direct signals. Planet comes in 1 position and correlates lines of 2 track location and 3 centers of operation. Track calculates lines at ground centers, 4 track location setting, position locations to its system. Calculate and modify takes the lines of 25 line cycles and line can set add lines of 50, sets communication lines of 50 traction settings at space, 50 track location of powers, and 50 track location of ground centers in line communication lines. Split lines anomaly of 5 track locations in cycles of generation screen lanes adaptation and center core system of port of communication. That equation, right? All right, center communication line is understanding how to get out of the communication setting, starting with the platforms, right? You have to find a way what placebo means to you. Okay, everybody, you have to understand, you have to get titles and labels of what placebo really means. What does it mean to you? Because it has no significance to anything else. It's not titled, it's not labeled, it's not even here, but it's always here, right? So always get in conjunction with everything that you see in position of process. To understand that, then you understand the coordinates. So if you want to communicate with these, all lines of communication of planet surface, it's all synchronized in positional lines of string theory and attachment set location or settings of DNA. Everything's in DNA, all right? So everything has location grid that travels its system. Everything has location grid that travels its system, okay? You understand that now? All right? So the higher self is going through the center that's changing acceleration. Okay, so each time it reaches the planet, it comes back in tractions. It comes back in tractions. Okay, it's very powerful through connection line setting, solar sail, dimensional sail, correlation sail, confirmation line sail, compute screen lines, adaptation lines of sail. Everything is a sail rotation spin. Correlates ascending lines of center operates lines, correlates ascending to energetic line, the energetic of the dome, and core stream lines are an expansion line screen adaptation lines of surface. Puts all communication setting that travels. So you're always going to have a configuration of face and set design and modification system and travel. Always, 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 because you're always protecting yourself. Right? So you're always in a face recognition, which is you in the center operation. Okay, so you allow yourself to see yourself in all formations. The machine operation line screen sets lines of consciousness location to its awareness. All right. So we have a better understanding how to go through location grid of planets. Now we have to understand how to use the string theory, right? 2 panels, cross-referencing. Okay. And then you into location grid, geographical map, right? So this is location grid. Okay. This is a security line. Sets locations in a 45 split lines of anomaly. Graph calculation lines, cross lines of data, highways, and track location to a system all through travel. Okay, so all you're doing is you're creating location grids wherever you're going, right? You're creating location grids wherever you're going. Okay, so when you get to these points, the position location comes to you, right? So the planet is now coming to you in traction. All right, it's coming to you now, right? It comes to you, right? The original planet stays there. It doesn't move. It's in its own configuration system. So what happens in position locations, the configuration of the light and the dark web puts position lines of copy and paste. That puts lines of communication settings. So what you're doing is you're illuminating the graph of the planet. You're taking the planet that's copy and paste, and you're linking it to your system through correlation. Hooah. All right. So you're not actually moving the planet. You're just copying and paste the planet. Okay, you're picking up the information in the panel. Okay, you can't move a planet. Okay, so all you can do is copy and paste and link it to somewhere else, right? Copy, paste locations, initiate, run program. All right, align sending high interference, execute code is line screens, direct lines modifications. All right, paste line, add line condition setting into levels into one center. Let's go into one default and line position travels, point lines of graphs. Pluto line communication centers, the travel point lines of setting, location grid, and travel communications. Boom. All right, so you got the planet of Pluto coming in your attractions now, right? Coming back to you, coming back to you. This is the position. This is direct. That's direct. Okay. That is not direct. This is direct. Everything is coming to you to receive. You're transmitting out, receiving in. Okay. So when you're receiving in, you're receiving the planet that copy and paste its setting in track location to its coordinates. It comes to you line position, and what you're doing in attractions, you're seeing the planet rotate its system. Then it comes in line connection setting to understand where you are in track location. It moves its own system, right? So every planet is protecting its own system in line condition setting, all right? So it has its own fortress of its own solitude. And that puts lines of communication setting to understand the process. So once you understand that, then you understand the configuration, how to use your binaries and your transistors and relocation setting to travel. Point lines of graph communication. One indicates lines of 3 attractions and settings. Okay, 3 set locations, right? Planet A, planet B, planet C. Okay? Cross line signals comes in U track location to a system, all levels of operation surface that comes in line communication setting position of its program, right? Sets lines of platforms, equal lines, correlates, and transits of divots, crosses locations, settings, all line communication of platforms, in communication line to the setting to its operation surface that right to the location system of docking location setting to travel. Okay? All right. So getting coordinates line communication, you have to be specific of what you're connecting with because everything is at a different frequency. A planet is at a different frequency. You have to be at the same frequency to connect with the planet. You can't connect with a different line of frequency because it doesn't understand your attractions. You have to connect with the actual frequency that is the actual intelligence of its formation locations. But you have to understand every planet changes its formation locations of teleportation. It's never in the same teleportation unit. It's protecting its own system. Okay? From you and everyone else. Okay? So to get balance with that, in that position locations, you have to understand the mechanism of the levels of you through energy. The high correlation setting is understanding how to use yourself through frequencies and understand how to use your vibrational graphs and how to use your harmonics. Getting that communication setting. Here's that core system. It's you and travel, right? Ground center is crop circle. You're on the platform already, right? 2 tractions, right? 1, 2, 3. Okay? So process here. Now you're in the power line generation screen, right? Okay, so now you're in energetic dome, right? Cross location, time leap, in position locations. That's you in center, okay? So that's a triangulation lines of 3 triangulation line position of its pro locations through pi. All right, process calculation of platforms A, B, C, and D in track locations. Platforms 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations, right? Now you come to a planet right here in track location. That's a planet right there, boom, right? So sonars come in, tractor beam comes in, brings you in position, right? So now you're inside the core center of the planet system in position of its civilization that has its own correlation setting of its city, a modification centers of travel. You're locked in the planet now, all right? So this alone is its location grid through a platform. So understanding the platforms is understanding your position of flying, location setting, when you understand the process locations of levitation, all through track locations through next 3000 line setting. In communication settings, all through travel, in location system, and calculate and modify in direct line set calculation. Right? It's very powerful when you come in that calculation. Okay? All right, so once you understand how to direct and redirect, see this is direct, this is redirect, this is redirect, and this is direct. You can go one way or the other way, it doesn't matter, right? But you're always in the process of going through A, B, and C, and D, and E. So A goes here, right? B is here, right? A to B, right? So go from A to B, right? But you have to go from this to get to B. right? Until you understand well, A is B and B is A, right? So you direct and redirect, right? So understanding that process, and here is location to the setting of operations surface of what's all calculated modified to the planet, X marks the spot. So that position location. So you can go from this way or you can go this way and travel. So there's always ways to different line of communication setting the coordinates. Your coordinates are always constantly changing every second, every minute, every hour, because the planet itself is protecting its own system of its seconds, minutes, and hours of travel. Okay? Or its hours, minutes, and seconds of travel. Look what I created, right? Cross location of platforms and setting of center. Position lines of high correlation lines of center. Cross location of ground lines of center. See what I created? A platform, right? A teleportation vessel. Set correlation. Whoa, look at that. See? Intelligence. So it's a formation location of platforms of high line communication setting and position of process communications. Direct calculation cross-line signal location settings of 3 tractions. Direct calculation lines cross-line center downshift location of 3 set locations. Process communication upline settings and 3-line communication setting position location of programs. Platform crossing line signals cross-referencing communications of 4 platforms of communication. So all you're doing is just in operation, you're expanding the minds. You're expanding your highways, your travels, your mechanisms, your platforms, your location grids, your geographical systems, getting coordinates of your planets and foundation graph lines so you can expand the mind and set position. And once you get to a certain level, not only you can copy and paste, but you can planetary line screens and put your planets in different areas and track locations and measure. That scales its balance in all communication setting that puts lines of fortitude screen lines adaptations to its process of its string theory and set calculations. All right, so you got that position line setting, right? All right, so now you got the planets coming in. These are the planets coming in, right? So coordinates, calculation lines of platforms here, platforms here, platforms here, cross location of platform there. So it's the triangulation lines. Let's process under triangulation of molecule design line. Cross locations in position location with triangulation small line. Coordinates, calculation lines, high track location line conditions, triangulation line conditions of 4-line communication. Process calculation, all planet service, right? So that's the 3-track provisions on a 4-side line communication setting, all lines of Jupiter, coordinates line communication lines, northwest, east lines, coordinates line connection, high interference, flux over correlation setting, track lines, frequency lines of omega, line communication setting, alpha, delta. Boom. Now you're there in tractions, all right? That's the coordinates to get to there. All 3 platforms, okay? So it's complicated stuff, isn't it? So understanding your sky nets and your sky grids, understanding your sky panels and line position location of travel and calculation, right? So that's what it is. That's what string theory is. It's a location grid. It's a geographical map for the higher self avatar to sim to go through. It's 3 frequencies, right? Low frequency, mediation frequency, and high frequency. Okay? Higher self, avatar, and sim. Okay? Put that together. You have a center core system of the over, soul, and traction. Okay? So it's really interesting. Once you understand how this all works through string theory. String theory is all based on how to create a grid. All right? How to create a modification grid, how to create a holographic grid, or line condition setting, process lines of 1 and travel. Okay, that's a grid, right? So higher self is on the grid. Okay? It's on the grid, right? So you can have platforms of this as setting. It doesn't have to be circle. It can be anything it wants to be in travel in communications. It can have box centers in travel. It can have anything it wants. But in that position, it needs a location grid. Okay? So it can travel through, right? Because that's protecting everything that comes around. That's protecting everything that comes around. If you expose yourself in position, sentience come in traction. Okay? All right. So that's the importance of string theory. String theory is connecting to its planets, all through grids, right? And you got 2 panels. Remember I told you about the galactic interface? You got 2 panels, block center location. Here's the planet, right? In position, that's the planet right there, right? Well, there's a location grid, right? And you have to go through and track location, right? So here's the higher self. Michael already went through a location grid. Now it's got to go through another grid, right? Sets position location. Sonar comes in. Doon, 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 doon. What are you doing here? Identify your system. You don't identify your system. XD thousands come out in plateau, protecting this planet. okay? And it comes at you. Engage or disengage, right? Okay? So it's important you understand what you're connecting with and making sure that you're at the right frequency. If you're not at the right frequency, you're in patterns of behavior. If you set a position location offline calculation detections to a planet line communication interference, understanding you through track locations. Remember, all planets know you. It's you understanding the planet now. So the planet itself already knows its mechanism location, understands the frequency, understands where you come from, and understands where you've been. Yeah. Oh, it's like calculations. Wait a sec. $200? Okay.
Does it have changed?
I don't know if that changed.
But they have to give
They haven't given me change.
three converts to the same, right?
Yes. Where are you going?
Because it's the user suggestion, just have this week, and I want to see this time with the iPad, so we're going to go.
Okay.
It is the user key because I know you.
Say more.
I know you, right? You guys too much. Getting tried the key, but they have to return three times like this. Alright?
Why do you like me to detective? I like to help people out.
But we don't get nothing, we get much.
Okay, going through track provision lines of cycles is all about directing and redirecting your location setting in your plasma screens. Getting that communication system, how space is set up for you, is all through location grid, right? To get to your destination of your planet. Okay, so setting core system, there's location grid. You have to have a location grid to go through, right? That's the portal, that's the Stargate that goes through the communication setting, right? Crosses locations of the higher self that travels through, right? Sonar comes in and travel in position location of the system. You identify your system, you're good. If not, X2000s come out, protecting its system, right? It's pretty simple. So you understand the coordinates. Coordinates are given to you once you understand the frequencies of its planet. If you give wrong coordinates, Okay, let's continue on. So much going on in Mexico, you never know. But that's a beautiful thing. You're always distracted. But now, never allow yourself to be distracted by anything else. Always get back in sync because that changes the frequencies. If it changes the frequencies, it changes the planets, it changes the patterns of behavior of the game that you're in of yourself. Okay? The most important thing is to reach those frequencies, and they're set in a certain chronological time that measures and scales and balances you into coordination of self-modification. Okay? So it's important you understand that. All right, so that's just the basic rounds, how to use the coordinates of your planets, how to reach that through symbolism or anything, letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, but they always come back to you through sonar. And it gets louder and louder and louder. So it's all about, you get that ping, right? It's like, whoa, what's that, right? That's schematics over screen lines, adaptation lines, our coordinates, and communication lines of pi. That's given to you through applications. Where planet is it coming from? You have to know specifically because it is a color and it is a number. Just like you have a color and you are a number. You have to identify what you're identifying through frequency. If you're not identifying the frequencies, you're not identifying the right coordinates to its planet. Now, it could be another planet, but it's not a planet that you want to connect to because you're changing your patterns of behavior. You're always going to be distracted, but you don't want to be distracted from yourself because that changes your patterns of your energetic signatures. It's very important you understand that, okay? When you get into your own coordinates in that position, be specific in detail of what you want, all right? You have to see what's going on. So when you get the ringing ears, that's communication of echo and sonar coming into you right away. It's giving you schematics. Your ears are opening up more lines of space through modulation, through all levels of time, through clocking, right? So you can be getting clocking lines of schematics. You can get lines of patterns of schematics. You can get parallels of schematics. You can get primary schematics. You can get anything as set design that planet is giving you through its intelligence of its calculation system, right? So it's really powerful. Once you understand how to set up the location grid and cross-referencing your signals and how fast you're going is determine what happens to your system once you come into the galactic interface. You're basically getting into an interface of a planet now that's in two different lines of parallels, okay? So it's a cross between where it is and where it isn't. So it's about understanding if the planet's here, it's in position of travel, right? If the planet's here, it's in position locations of travel, okay? If the planet's here, it's in disappear location to its settings of travel, okay? So I'm just trying to get you to understand how it comes into inhabitation zones has correlation settings of travel communications, right? Inner cycles, outer cycle, right? In between cycle of planets, right? So wherever the planet is, you have to stand in between of its planet communications because everything isn't equal. Everything's an equal of its setting. But everything has its own platforms of communication system of travel in calculation, okay? Sets communication lines of the sun and the moon at all lines of system, all through calculations to its attraction and calculation, okay? That's how it works, all right? So a lot has been said. To be understood is to understand. And once you get in that positions, then you understand how to get in positions of levels of planets of string theory, right? That's string theory. They're all connected, right? So it's really interesting too, because they can go from here. Remember, planets move. They move in their location setting. They're never in the same locations because they're at different frequencies. So the higher you go, the more they go in position, right? So they're already there. You have to reach up to there through frequency. And everything is in a film strip of design for you to understand through attractions. You're tracking everything you already know through muscle memory. So if it's a planet here in attractions, here's another planet calculation, here's another planet. Everything's in chronological order that you reach through frequencies, right? So you reach these through frequencies, but not this one, right? This line communication lines is zeta, okay? This is omega, this is delta, this is theta, okay? So it's basically understanding it could be alpha delta, alpha data, alpha delta omega. It can be anything it wants, but you have to pick up the waves to get there. What is the waves? Why do you have waves of the brain frequency? What is it? Cross-line signals, cross-line communication. What is it creating? Location grid. Boom. That's all it is. Understand the wave central system, right? Because that's what your brain is doing. Sets correlation lines of this in track locations. Your Schumann resonance. But you have to understand the waves. Okay? You have to understand the waves and what's going on, right? To get to your planet, to get to your planet, to get to your planet. Okay? But it has to be the location grid. It has to be the location grid to get there and travel. Okay? All right. So now you understand that, and now you understand the placebo. Now you're putting that all together. You understand how to process that through its energy of its setting, through its film strip that's already set up for you through muscle memory, right? So you're not coming back to anything. You already have that access. You're just coming back to who you are. Now, getting out of that gets you out of the optical illusion, how you see things around you and how it connects through sonar. Like, so once you get the answer line screen, it goes on to the next rhythm. It goes on to the next pattern of behavior. It goes on to the next sonar. It goes on to the next echo chamber. It goes on to the next highway. It goes on to the next wave. And it goes on to the next coordinates. Every time you pay attention, it changes its loop. It's always a loop. It's a continuous loop. So what that does, why it repeats it twice, is one to you and one to the planets. So it connects all lines of highest interference. So if you have 15,044 planets, it's connecting all that in seconds, minutes, and hours, coming back to you through attractions in chronological order of film strip that is set designed for you through modification. Okay? So it's very important. Position lines attractions. This is our algorithm. Okay? Same core track interference and line connected divots. Okay? Position lines of placement screens and harmonics. Okay? Waving central lines of 1 and position of 2 settings. Process communication downshift line cross location. Sets communication lines of ground lines of 3 settings of 4 track location. Process communication lines of 1 in position 2, 3, and 4 set location of 5. Now, this is all coming from a planet that's put in your system onto your line communication, your ears, and traction. All right? This is the information it's sending you through its planet. And this is all line signatures. Sending core lines tie highest interference into red and position locations into blue and location settings to white and tractions. Right? Sets correlation lines. Each line signature line screen is in, out, and audio and track location. Right? It's all coming from the planet. Okay? So it sends out the signals, graph communication lines of platforms in calculation. Right? Very powerful stuff, isn't it? So once you have direct line signals, then you understand the sonar of communication coming in line communication. Right? So it's communication lines of high centers, platform communications, black holes, line calculation setting, process, correlation setting, calculation. Right? And you can see the face recognition. See? Face recognition. Every face has a face. Every planet has a face. So, wind cycle line coordinates setting travel. Setting line communication setting position process, location lines, laser grids, powder grid, communication line, high calculation setting through pi. Track calculation line, screens, high definition line, side calculation system. So, planets give you information lines and settings. Primary communications are 2 cycles. Platforms, line cycles, lines of 4 track provision. Okay. Data files, cross location settings of travel. Data files, cross location 1, 2, 3, and 4 set location. Right? Cross line signals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 location setting. Right? Primary sets lines of 0, 0, 0, trifactor line communication levels, trimester line communication at position of program. But that is the central system in all line communication setting when it comes into the primers and how it's set up in line communication setting, that how it's given to you through sonars and line communication setting to echo chambers and set design and travel. Okay? So, and it's all coordinated through the planet that's giving you information. That's its planet, right? So you get it right through sonar at track location to your system and all levels of center operation. Okay? All right. So how's that in understanding what a planet does in traction? How it sends you codes through activation lines. So that's a lot to understand, is to be understood. Again, is to understand. It keeps repeating until you start paying attention. It gets louder and louder and louder. It doesn't continue on until you understand the source of where it's coming from through its coordinates. If you don't get in position location, your body is going to go into full reaction and not respond. Okay, so it's understand that transmitting and receiving. You're getting the information lines of intelligent location setting that's given you the chronological order of its information, of its muscle memory, of its projector, of its projection, guys. And you're seeing outline of communication. This is your eye lines. Okay, in directions, right? This is your back correlation setting attractions, right? This is your projector. This is your projection and how you see through line settings, through pi. Okay, through pi. Okay? So all this is a film strip that's already set in design, right? So look at the profile. Here's the moon. Here's the sun. Here's the projection and calculation. That's all it is. And you see it through its window frame. That's how you see, right? The window frame. Skyline, sky grid, location, setting, right? So this is giving it from here to there. Okay? So that's the copy of the planet. The planet's right here in traction. Right? So it's sending you sonar echo chambers to its information from here to here to here to there. Okay? That's how you start seeing things. Okay? That's how the planet works. All right, so you copy and paste, line position location its information panel, right? You get information through the coordination lines of the planet, goes lines of communication setting, interact location through here to the moon, and projects location of your system through its simulator. And that's what you see through graph calculations of box and mainframes, interact location, right? All through planets. Okay? All right, so I think we're good in that tractions and all division. Okay? Really understand how to walk the system, how to fly the system, how to levitate the system. Basic 3 ground centers of the mind itself, right? Understanding how to go the placebo effect. We'll get more into that in line communications, how to understand string theory and how to go through line communications setting to each planet and track location. Getting that line position locations, once you understand the placebo, then it gets in the cortex, then it goes into higher line setting, into mystical cortex, then you come into the simulation cortex of yourself, right? Really understand how to get in that position, how to bend space, how to modify space, how to triangulate space, how to reposition space. So what you're doing is you're just copy and paste those planets. You're not taking the planets out of foundation because it's always set in the VR system of its nothingness. So it's about understanding where the planets are coming from through frequency. And once you understand the balance of frequencies, life gets a lot more simpler of set design. Okay? Keep yourself distracted from yourself. You start to recognize everything as string theory that's set designed for you through modifications, understanding how to go through the cross-referencing signals and understanding how to set 2 panels and in position location to a crossing grid. Location grid. Okay? That's a geographical map. So the higher self can travel through. Okay? All right? That's string theory. So you're creating a location grid out of string theory of threads, right? And once you get in that provisionalized of cycles, then you come into your platforms. Elf communicates the setting, all communicate to its line connection of travel, right? Travel here, 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 and here, right? But these are all location grids that you have to go through, okay, to get to your planet, okay? So there you go. That's how it's set up. All right. So that's the basic understanding, the basic introduction, location setting when it comes to string theory. Now, theory, how does it mean to you? Because it means something different to everybody else, right? Theory, travels. Okay, H, home, existence, operation, remembering, Y line screen, theory. We have to get out of titles and liberals and everything, what that means. You have to become your own formula and equations, right? You're always going to see the earth of everything, what it is in position lines attractions. Yes, how everybody has their formula, but you have your formula too. And how you see it has no significance to anything else because you are your own programmers of programming of your simulator that you're seeing through your simulation, all right? This is how you start to see things in travel. Center correlation lines of 3 track locations, all levels of window frame. Okay, window frame, box frame, main frame, correlation frame, track frame, computer frame. It's a calculation. Okay, so, but you have to understand how to use the line communication. What is the simulation of the sun? And what is the modification of patterns and behaviors of the moon, right? Staying within the lines. Color it line communication, but stay within the lines. Stay within the lines. Don't go outline. Okay, that's an outline pattern behavior. That coordinates and communicates in setting and to reposition your planets in outline. So instead of in habitation zone, it's in out habitation zone. Very simple, right? Stay within the line with your moon. That's your patterns behavior. Have emotion, but don't use it through travel. Very simple, right? It's not complicated. All you have to do is reiterate everything in your frequencies and how you feel comfortable with yourself inside through the inner self, the inner spectrum of yourself, the self-modification of yourself, the self-discovery of yourself, the self-line calculation setting of loving thyself unconditionally of thyself. Knowing thyself, guys. Not coming back to who you are. You're already there. You just try to understand the process of why you went into that position is how to get into that position of what you already know in traction, location, setting. The more you understand how to use the configuration, how to use location grid as a graphical screen, as a mapping sequence, as a high position of travel, then it gets much easier to understand through its placebo that sets lines of vortex locations to its synchronized correlation setting to its planets that puts everything in calculations, a string theory, a set design. Okay? All right, so let's go through triangulation line, 2 line screens and set location, point lines of dots, right? Triangulation lines of pi, correlation lines, 1 split lines of anomaly. Okay, correlation sound interference of planet line surface that tracks its course communicates to its system. Process calculates lines of planet here, and track locations. So when you get in position of planet, what planet are you connecting to? Because a planet is correlation setting. You have to understand the color and where it's coming from through frequency. Because it can be configuration of a rainbow color, or it can be configuration of the 3 colors, or it can be 6 colors. What planet are you connected to, and how are you connected to that planet? It's ancestry, history, and celestial that you've already been through the oversoul. So getting that position lines attractions, there you go, 15/5 in track locations. That direct line centers the planet's lines of 1 track location setting and balance. Process calculation of the platform's line centers of A, B, C, and line centers of D in track location. Communicates lines of the sun and the moon, opens all signals location setting in position of square roots and triangulation in location grids in calculation. Process calculation line ground centers, line condition setting, opens all segments, opens all panels, and line rotation surface in track location. Very powerful stuff. Okay, that's it. We're done. Okay, so that's what it is. You guys got to understand the grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres, and how to use your highways and how to coordinate your systems, okay, through your placebos, and how to use string theory, a set design through modifications. All right. Talk to you soon.